All right, we might get going. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining. For those who don't know me, my name is Mitchell Comfort. I'm the CEO of Next365 ANZ. It's a pleasure to have you here today for our Accounts Payable Automation webinar. Go to the next slide. Thanks, Paul. So the agenda for today is obviously I'll just do a quick welcome, give you a quick brief about who we are here at Next365. I'll hand it over to Per, who will go through the AP automation webinar and talk about the differences between products and a little bit about AP automation and why you might be thinking about it a bit differently in the new world at the moment. And then we'll open it up for some Q&A at the end. If you do have any questions, you can wait for that section at the end or just pop them into the chat as we go. We won't be addressing the questions as we go through, but we'll come back to them all at the end and give everybody the opportunity to ask Per any questions and get answers to anything you would like to ask. So a little bit about us and who we are here at Next365. We're a bit different. So we're not your traditional SI or partner. We provide independent advisory and expertise and senior specialist services across your entire Dynamics 365 journey. So we provide market leading advisory services, and we work exclusively on the client side or embedded in your team. So very much we have a thesis of building up your internal expertise, allowing you to take ownership of your journey, as well as everything to do with your transformation. So we want you to be working with us. We like to do things with you, not for you. So we're very much there hand in hand with you across your journey, hence why we do webinars such as this to provide free advice on the things that are coming in the pipe and what's the latest and greatest in the Dynamics ecosystem, because it helps everybody and we all want to learn together. So no matter what your ambition or transformation scenario, we can help you across your entire journey, making it more successful and hopefully a little bit faster as well. In terms of our services themselves, so as I mentioned, we're here all the way throughout, no matter what phase it is, whether you're deciding, preparing, looking to do some change management, you're doing an implementation, you're looking to scale your rollouts, you're in the operate and continuous improvement phase, or you just like a review, we're there no matter where you're looking in every step of the way. A lot of our clients do get us engage with us early because we do allow you to do a lot of that setup and avoid a lot of the mistakes that can be done if you don't have that expertise and just relying on purely internal or existing knowledge within your team or what you're getting from the market. Next slide, thanks, Paul. I think this is a big one for us. So everybody here at Next365 is experts. We're all senior specialists. We're all, I think the minimum person that we've got usually within our organization is 12 or so years in terms of expertise on Dynamics, because we want to be able to give you that very best in terms of advisory, governance, and architects. So that's very much a common denominator across just as the ANZ group, but across the world as well. So we pride ourselves on attracting and having a team full of not just industry experts, but Dynamics product experts to be able to give you the very best advice. Go to the next slide. Thanks, Paul. So this is just a quick snapshot of some of the clients that we work with worldwide in terms of AP automation and within ANZ itself. Thomas Foods is probably one of the larger ones that we do here. We're currently embarked with them on a multi-stage global finance consolidation project, where one of the big pieces there is how we can help them with AP automation and get the very most out of the technology and AI and that sort of thing at the moment. So this is very much a hot topic that we're seeing with our clients, and we're hoping it will help you as well. I'll now hand you over to Per. Paul, just go to the next slide if you can, and just tell a little bit about Per before I get him to introduce himself. So Per is obviously, he's going to be very humble, but he is one of the, if not the leading experts globally for AP automation. He's been doing this for a long, long time. And, from a global perspective, I think most people would be going to somebody like him or, in that space. So he's definitely somebody who will be able to provide a lot of insights into this subject, and very much appreciate having his time on the call today. So Per, maybe you want to give a quick intro on yourself and kick off.
Thank you, Mitchell. Yes, hello everyone. My name is Per Skog. I'm based out of Sweden. So when my English sounds like the Swedish chef, that's why. And I've been working with D365, or as I like to call it, Accepta, since 2005. I've been primarily working within the old trade and logistics area, so basically find AP, AR, inventory, and I've also, of course, worked with finance. As Mitchell said, I've been working quite a bit with AP automation throughout all of these years. Yeah, that's very short about me. So AP and invoice processing challenges. What we're going to do now is we're going to start up with a short intro part on why you want to do AP. And those of you who are doing manual AP probably recognize these challenges in your processes. There's usually quite a bit of manual steps. It can be quite a long time to get an invoice approved. There's a high risk of errors, and this process is actually quite expensive. Gartner usually have numbers for each market on how much an invoice costs to process. Here in Sweden, if you do it manually, I think the latest number is 30 euros per invoice if you're doing it completely manually. So a typical view of this is that I've seen many cases where the invoices come in. The first thing the AP clerk does is to take a copy of the invoice. That copy is stored on his or her desk while he or she routes the actual invoice for approval out with the business. And after 2 weeks, the invoice is lost somewhere, and they take the copy and start over. So this is sadly quite a bit of a common scenario when you do manual processing, and that's one of the things that we really want to get rid of. And of course, just the approvals is not the only part we want to automate, and we'll discuss this as we're going through the slide deck. So why should you do AP automation? On AP automation, there are clear return on investments. So this is based on a report from Ardent Partner, State of E-Payables from 2023. There are quite possibly newer ones, but this is a fairly recent one. They're comparing the top 20% users of AP automation with the rest, so to say. So if we're looking at these numbers, so the best in class, they have about 2 times more automation than anyone who's just using AP without working with the automation to a high degree. So we see about 49% straight through processing without compared to 23% if you're not doing the best you can. And straight through processing, it's a word used in AP automation. It's basically mean the invoice comes in, it's handled completely automatically without exceptions, and it's done. It's very hard to get over, say, 55-60%. if you're using non-purchase orders invoices. But if you're using purchase order invoices, you can get a very, very high percentage if you at the same time also focusing quite a bit on your quality in the work you do in procurement. So I've seen clients for POs reaching 90% full automation. But it's not only the invoice side then that's important, it's also the procurement side to make sure that the POs are created in a good way with correct data and quality. We see that we can spend about 51% less time on invoicing. We have an approximate 81% increase in efficiency. So if we look here, it says that, for example, in the best of class, it takes 3.4 days to process an invoice end to end. So from getting it approved, getting it posted, 3.4 days compared with 70.9 days on average for the group. And we have a much lower invoice processing cost. Now, keep in mind that these numbers is not comparing people the best in class with people using no AP automation. It's comparing best in class with people using AP automation. So if you're not using AP automation at all, of course, these numbers will be even greater. So what are the key focus areas to why you want to do AP automation? So usually what we're talking about, which is one of the most important factors today, is time, right? So we want to reduce manual work. We want AP to be able to focus on the tricky parts. Processing invoices is not tricky, it's quite easy, but it's something that takes time if you don't have any help with it. We want to reduce costs. We want to make sure the invoice moves as smoothly as possible. We want to be more efficient doing it. So for each minute put in, we want more minutes put out. So those are the time and money aspects of it. But what we also get is, of course, an increased control. And just the increased control can be sufficient to start using AP automation. There are clients who haven't looked at the ROI numbers, but they've just said, due to the business we're in, we need complete traceability of everything we do regarding invoices. So we need to know who did what, when, what changes has been made, etc., etc. So increased control is a factor that can be as important or more important than time and money. It's a good way to standardize processes. When you put them into a system, of course, you get the process run the way you set it up in the system, and everyone needs to run it the same way. The last one is quite intangible, but one effect that we've seen is, of course, that when you automate your AP, you're usually paying on time, and that helps improve the relationship with your vendors. One other factor quite important related to the vendors, if you're working with cash discounts, AP automation is quite powerful in making sure that you can hit those cash discount deadlines. So if it takes you 17 days to process an invoice, you cannot pay within 6 days to get a discount. But if you process an invoice in 3.4 days, you can pay in 6 days to get a cash discount. So that's also important in regards to how you work with your vendors. Now, those of you who's worked with AI know how important data is. And it's the same thing when we're talking AP automation, because all AP automation solutions and ways of setting up standard F&O for this has a heavy reliance on data. Even with or without AI, data is the core, because AP automation is heavily rules-based. So I would even say that if you look at how most solutions for AP automation look like, including standard, it's basically an RPA engine. So it's heavily rules-based. So to be able to work automatically, you need to have certain things in place. You need to have bank accounts. Because when you're running AP manually, you're going to enter the invoice and you're going to select the bank account based on what it says on the invoice to pay it. But when you're running AP automation, whatever OCR tool you're using, or if you're getting electronic invoicing or whatever, you're going to get the bank account that's going to be used. And that bank account needs to be in F&O. And they need to be in the same format to be able to get the match from what we have on the invoice and what you have in F&O. Terms of payment. It's really important that if your actual term of payments is 30 days, and in F&O you set it 120 days, and you do AP automation, the system is going to calculate the due date to 120 days unless we actually get the due date. So this slide is global, so I'm calling it VAT number, but it is of course GST number for those of you in Australia. The system will use the GST numbers to make sure that the GST reporting is done correctly. Once again, we can get the GST number to be used from the invoice. Now, I don't think you have much of this in Australia, or for that matter, Asia Pacific. But what we see more and more here in Europe is that due to our VAT laws, we have to have multiple VAT or GST registers in multiple countries. So if I'm a Swedish entity, I of course have my GST register in Sweden. But if I sell for more than 100,000 euros to Denmark, I need to be registered for GST in Denmark as well. And then depending on the ship to ship from of the stuff I'm ordering, I might need to book the vendor invoice as Danish VAT, Swedish VAT, or EU VAT from the same supplier, depending on where they're shipping from and where they're shipping to. I do not know your GST rules good enough to know if you have something similar. But for example, in India, you have the state GST or state VAT taxes, which work in a similar way. But just so VAT might not be as important for you as it is here in Europe or in other areas. But when you have more complex VAT scenarios, we need to make sure the VAT numbers are correct in the master data. When we're working with purchase orders, we need something on the invoices that exists on the PO. This is usually one of the most trickiest part. And that's why I said it's very important when you're working with AP automation to work with your procurement team. Because when we get an invoice, we'll have something on it that says what it is. Could be an item number, could be a description field, but there's something that says what it is. We usually have a PO number on the invoice. The PO number exists in F&O, so that's easy. But then we have lines. And for automation for purchase orders, you really need lines. Otherwise, you need to do manual stuff. So we want to capture the lines, but we need them to say that line 1 on the invoice corresponds to line 5 on the purchase order. And we need some sort of data and rules engine to do this. Now, what all the solutions I'm going to talk about later supports is, of course, the item number. And of course, also support external item numbers. You can have your vendor's item number on the invoice, and it will find your item number on the PO as long as you've done the correct setup in standard F&O. But also, some solutions can use just the text or just the pricing to find the lines, but it's really important that what's on the lines on the invoice are somewhere on the lines on the PO for the system to be able to find the lines. And then the most important one, you need an invoice for what you buy, not for money or quantity, that can differ. But if you buy a door, you want an invoice for a door. You don't want an invoice for door frame, door blade, door handle, key lock, and key, because then there is no correlation between the invoice and the order. All of these things are quite easy to fix when you're working manually, but when you're working automatically, it creates an issues. So for POs, it's really important to make sure that what you order is what you get an invoice for, and what you get an invoice for exists on the order. There's, of course, also a lot of other data that we need to have there. So references for approval flows, dates. So do we have, how are we working with posting date, invoice date, due date, cash discount dates, etc., etc., etc. So there are different types of automation that you can use. We have basically AP staff automation, what makes AP's life easier. Business user automation, what makes the approver's life easier. We're going to talk about both of these. And there are many different automation types. So we can have business rules or parameters. We can have RPA or more advanced business rules, because keep in mind, RPA, robotic process automation, is basically if this, do that. But they're usually a bit more complex than just pure parameters. We can use AI machine learning. This is, of course, something that has exploded the last couple of years. But AP automation is one of the areas where machine learning and AI has been used since the beginning, especially in the OCR part, to convert the invoices to text, but also in regards to coding of the invoices. And of course, there is core functionality that can be used in the AP process, where we, for example, use the standard cash discount features to be able to work with cash discount. There are other examples as well, but all of these things are part of driving the automation. So, AP staff automation. I've tried to just quickly summarize the main types of areas where we can get things done. So, of course, finding the data, making sure the data comes in. Things that help you automate the process. Custom validation rules. Does this vendor require a purchase order or not? Prepayments processes. Automatically connecting a credit invoice with the debit invoice and doing the settling behind the scenes. Having the system post things automatically. Getting coding on the invoices automatically, either through business rules or machine learning. Having the system handle sales tax. So those of you who used tax calculation engine, it's really helped automation for complex VAT scenarios quite a bit, especially in the USA, but also in Europe, where we have, as I mentioned previously, getting more and more advanced with our tax rules. Don't know how common sales tax engine is in your region, but it really helps you getting accurate sales tax or GST. The system can take automatic actions, like I said before, if this, do that. So there are a lot of things you can do there. And of course, in the approval process, we want the system to automatically set the approvals. We want to get insights out of the process, what's happening. And depending on your business needs, we want to have dynamic approval. Dynamic approval basically just means that the system is able to update the approval rules on the fly based on changes to the invoice, most commonly coding. So let's say, for example, a very common approval rule is first the person who ordered the stuff, then the person who owns the cost, and then money. The person who owns the cost is usually the cost center. Can be anything, but usually the cost center. So when you code an invoice to cost center IT, the invoice is sent to the IT manager. When someone in the approval chain changes the cost to finance, if you have dynamic approval, the chain is rerouted down to the finance manager. Next slide, Paul. Business user automation. So things that help the business. Auto approval, of course, PO matching, contracts or agreements, so where we can get auto approval of non-PO invoices, helping coding the invoices, so limiting what you can see, helping when you have, for example, when you code an invoice, you can get dimensions from the vendor, you can get dimensions from the main account, you can get dimensions from the project. helping to make sure they merge in the way you want, getting insights out of the processes, being able to communicate with other approvers or with vendors. Next slide. And this basically gives us the house of AP automation. It is based on three things. It's the invoice data capture, it's accounts payable, and it's end user approval. So those are the three areas that build the house. We can do next slide. So we are going to look throughout here a couple of slides. We are going to talk about standard. We're going to talk about some options. And the options I've chosen for this is DoUp and Xflow for built-in solutions. They are the two leading ones. For external solutions, it's Medius and Basware. They are two of the leading ones for finance and operations users. They are enterprise and large SMB related, and they are very well known. There are, of course, other built-in. There are a lot of others external ones, but I've chosen the most common ones that you see on the market. For example, I left out iShare and Rillium Palette since they are more focused on smaller businesses, but they work with F&O as well. But this is just to show you some of the comparisons on what's out there. So this is the external vendors. I have a different slide on standard. But if we're looking at it, we see that we have, and also this is very simplified keywords, because if we're looking at DoUp and Xflow, they're basically solve the same thing in the same way with some different changes. Medius and Basware have a slightly more differences between them and the focus on slightly different thing. But if we're looking at the main difference is that the built-in ones, they are directly inside F&O using F&O logic directly. So that helps you with in regards to data sync. It helps you to making sure that account structure is followed. It helps you to make sure everything is posting the way they should, because everything is using the standard posting process. But both of these solutions only work with finance and operations. If you have a multi-ERP solutions, they would not be what I would recommend. If we're looking at the external solutions, they are quite big, quite robust platforms. They can do a lot of things where AP automation is one of them. Both Medius and Basware also do procurement and other things. Basware do a complete end-to-end solution offering where they can also help you with scanning as a service and stuff like that. They use connectors. So they have a standard platform for AP automation that they connect to the various ERPs, and in the connection, the various ERPs logic are handled. So this creates some issues from time to time, but it can also solve things that the built-in ones can't do. There are certain things that you cannot do in standard F&O that you can do in a standard AP automation solution like Medius or Basware, and then just have the integration fix how to get it posted into the system. But in general, built-in is built-in, so you get the benefits from that. External is external, you get the benefits from that, and of course you get the drawbacks from both, depending on what you have. So we can do the next slide. Standard. Standard is a very core, basic approval engine. The actual so this is where we're coming back to the three pillars, right? We have OCR or data capture, and we have accounts payable automation. The accounts payable automation part of standard D365 F&O is more or less the same as it was in AX 2012. There have been a little tweaks on it, but the core is the same. While what's really happened is the data capture part. So with standard, you're getting built-in data capture directly connected to the AP process. So it has things to make it smoother. And then you have the same workflow engine that you're used to in F&O. You have some extra rules that we talked about to be able to get the connection between items, etc. in there. It's a very smooth process. It's not super capable because it's still built on the same core that was in there for accounts payable and approval automation since many years ago. But it's there and it works. It works really good for if you have a very standardized F&O process. Then we have cost, and we'll talk about that on the next slide, because Microsoft has chosen a really weird cost way, but we'll talk about that. There, of course, you cannot get as much reporting out of it from as the external or built-in solutions. It doesn't support the dynamic approval without doing quite a lot of work in Power Platform to use Power Automate instead of the built-in workflow. But the basis there, it's quite easily runnable. And I usually say, if you have less than 10,000 invoices, it's a no-brainer. Take the standard. If you have more than 10,000 invoices a year, do a comparison on what you can get out of it and what you need. So next slide. The key thing with the standard solution is the data capture. So I've chosen here to compare standard data capture with what I consider the best of breed, which is Tungsten AP Essential, formerly known as ReadSoft Online. So the built-in one is built, well, it's a Power Platform app, right? But it's considered built-in. It's using the Azure AI Builder and Document Intelligence in the bottom. It supports PO invoices. For non-PO invoices, it supports header-only. It supports PO, header-only POs, and cost invoices. So you can run all types of invoices through it. It uses side-by-side like anything else. It has continuous learning. The pricing is the tricky part. The pricing is that it's based on your highest month. So you have to pay yearly, just as you need to do for everything else in AP automation, but you need to pay for your highest consumption month times 12. So if you have 10,000, let's say you have 20,000 invoices per year, but you get 3,000 of them in June, you actually have to pay for 36,000 invoices with the standard one. That makes the pricing of the standard one a little bit weird, and it can sort of say strike quite differently. It can get very weird cases from it, from pricing perspective, if you have a very distributed usage basis where you have a lot of invoices in summer or a lot of invoices in Christmas. It can have quite an effect on the pricing. It's PDF only. It cannot read Word files and stuff like that. If you use custom modules, you cannot see the confidence scores. You don't know how accurate it thinks it is, and things like that. But it's a really good starting point. And it's really not fair to compare it with Kofax or Tungsten. That's existed basically since the 80s. They have multiple AI models out of the box, and they pick the best one depending on how they interpret the data. They are a separate application, right? So you can set up synchronization with 365, but you don't have to. So depending on what accounts payable and approver automation system you have, you can have a more complex or a very lean integration with Tungsten. They have some built-in business rules, etc., etc. But it is, if you want to have it fully integrated, which I actually wouldn't recommend, it's quite cumbersome to work with. It's a lot easier to work with if you're just using it as a converter from a paper or email into a structured format for the AP tool to work with, and then all the business logic in finding vendors, purchase orders, etc., is handling in the accounts payable automation tool. But this is I think the key takeaway, if we're comparing the standard one, and that includes both data capture and the AP part, is that it's basic. It covers the base. It checks all the requirements. If you have a requirement list, it will check them all. It works. It's the AP part is free. It's part of F&O. The data capture can be good priced or bad priced depending on how your invoice volume look over the year. Also keep in mind that you can, of course, also use the electronic document integration, the EDI part in standard F&O, and use with the accounts payable part as well. So you have a complete solution for both paper, emails, and EDIs within standard F&O. It's more or less cumbersome to set up, but it's there, and except the OCR part, it's included. Of course, the EDI also has a transaction cost, but it's there and it's available to you. All of the external systems have a lot more to offer, both in OCR and in accounts payable processing. They're more capable, they can do more things, but do you need it? That's something you need to think about. And as I said before, just between, as we say in Sweden, the thumb and this finger, I don't know the name of it in English, it's we call it the pointy finger. 10,000 invoices is a good ballpark. If you're below it, go with standard, don't even think about it. If you're above it, think about it. And that's the deck. So we have the floor open for questions. When we did this in Europe, we also got questions, for example, on bank automation. I haven't touched bank automation in this. I can answer many or most of them, but not all. But also, if you have any questions in regards to banking from an AP perspective, feel free to ask them. And please ask in the chat. There is no voice.
Any questions, anybody? Feel free to fire away. No questions? If you don't feel comfortable speaking up, more than happy to put them in the chat and I'll read them out to Per.
So on-prem is a very good question, Paul, and it's a slightly tricky one. Last time I checked, the standard data capture part didn't work with on-prem. Don't know the current status, but last time I checked, it didn't work with on-prem. And in general, Microsoft tells you that nothing in the Power Platform works with on-prem, right? So that's the tricky part. If we're talking the built-in one, do up an extension. As far as I know, they both work with on-prem. Medius and Password, they use a connector, so they work with on-prem as long as you can get it through. And of course, the standard AP part of standard works on-prem. But the tricky part is going to be for standard is the data capture one. But you can use, for example, Tungsten with standard as well. So it's a way to get it working with on-prem. On-prem shouldn't be an issue in regards to AP processing. And yes, all of the solutions are working with purchase order invoices in different ways. So if you have very complex scenarios, or rather your procurement department doesn't do what they should, so they don't put identifiers on, etc., then standard is nowhere near good enough, and you need to look at one of the more complex one. They have their pluses and minuses, all of them. So DoUp and Xflow, they lean a little bit more towards standard, but they've added stuff to get the correct identifiers in there and have quite complex rules engine to be able to support. I know, for example, in Xflow, you can use price and quantity with tolerances to try to find the correct purchase order line if you cannot use the item descriptor or item number. And also same thing in Medius and Bassware, they also have this. They have a little bit more complex rule set because they work with multiple ERPs, so they have a little bit more capability on the weird cases. So, but most of them, all four of them, should handle POs in a good enough way. But your actual requirements limit, which you need to look at your actual requirements and compare with the capability of each solution. Landed cost. Last time I checked, DoApp didn't support it. I know they had it on the roadmap. It's been a while since I looked, to be honest. Xflow does support it. Medius and Bassware, I don't know. Last time I checked, it didn't. But it's something that needs to be investigated on your case, because, as I said, Medius and Bassware can solve it in the integration. So even if they don't have a landed cost type of invoice, they can get it through using the integration. And I know Medius is really good at handling custom integration. Standard currently only support purchase order invoices and cost invoices. So it's not built for landed cost, but for OCR perspective. But of course, in the accounts payable part, you can run landed cost because it's a normal invoice. So it depends on what you mean fully support landed cost. But yes, inside the workflow engine and the approvals, standard can read from email and PDF automatically. Yes, it can. You set it up to read from an email, so it goes through. Same thing with Tungsten. They read emails automatically. Basically, any data capture solution out there today that is not for 40 years old works with email automatically.
Any other questions from anybody in the 2 minutes we have left? No worries. Well, if you do think of any questions, please feel free to email back either John, Paul, or myself, and we'll be happy to get you those answers. If not, thank you all so much for attending our webinar today, and thank you to Per for his wonderful presentation. Looking forward to speaking to everybody and meeting you all over the coming weeks and months. And see you on the next webinar. Thank you.